Yeah. Yeah. And this is the Boston chapter of Women in Robotics. Currently, we have 150 plus members in our chapter and more than 1,600 members in the global community. Anyone from any professional background who supports our cause is welcome to the group. Sign up link and other resources will be shared in the chat. Do check it out. And we also want to thank our Zoom sponsors, Vecna Robotics, for their support. Yeah, that being said, let's get to tonight's event. First of all, I want to thank Laurie. Thank you so much, Laurie, for making this possible and putting everything together. Today, we have partnered with Six River Systems to dive deeper into the lives of these industrious women working in robotics and to learn from their experience on how to build a successful career in the field. Before we start, I would like to introduce Ms. Gillian Hawks, the VP of Product Management and Analytics at Six River Systems, where she is responsible for the product vision and roadmap. In this role, she has earned the recognition as a top woman in supply chain by Supply and Demand Chain Executive and a leader in making a mark in robotics by the Society of Manufacturing Engineers. Gillian has a BA from Princeton University and an MBA from London Business School. Hi, Gillian. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, how's everybody?
Would you please give us an overview of the company as well as the recent developments that have been going on?
Sure, I'd love to. And welcome everybody. It's so good to see everybody. Maybe 2 seconds about me, because I think it's not because I'm super interesting, but just to sort of set up the concept of, I didn't know anything about robotics when I joined Six River, and I joined about 3 years ago. I, just like all of you, are looking for just things that challenge me, that grow me, that give me the ability to have a big impact. And you know, that's what I think all of us want. And I don't want anyone to be put off by the fact that you don't have what you think to be relevant experience, because everything is relevant. You bring in a unique toolkit to anything that you do. And there's always relevance. And there's the key for you is to pick out, hey, where I can bring relevance and impact and get growth, because that's what we need. That's what everyone needs to be really super successful. So most importantly, that is what, you know, I think women in any kind of technology and women in robotics need to remember. You bring a unique perspective, and we at Six Rivers really value that, because now I'll get into kind of like who we are and what we do, because that's really what the question was, but I wanted to provide a little context too. So Six Rivers is our mission is big, right? And we want to make fulfillment better everywhere. And fulfillment, and we'll talk about it more, I know, in some of the Q&A, fulfillment is happening. You wouldn't think fulfillment is a cool, sexy, amazing place to be. It is, because fulfillment is changing all around us. And we're driving that change as consumers, but we're also in the industry, we're reacting to that change. And that brings the challenge and the growth that we all want. So we as a company have evolved from simply a very, very hard challenge of building a robot that can pick orders in a warehouse, to stretching and growing both our hardware and our software products in crazy new and innovative ways, to do fulfillment in live stores, to do fulfillment in a young entrepreneur's garage, even, and everything in between. And I think that's really important. And then I will kind of wrap things up, because what is important is that the users of our product are diverse themselves. So all of the people who use our product are going to be, representative of a diverse world that we live in, and we need to build products to meet their needs and understand their needs, and no one better to have representation of women and other diversity categories into how we think about problems and how we develop and solve problems. And so that's why I'm so excited about this seminar and this discussion, and everyone who's here. So thank you. Thanks for letting me kick it off.
Thank you so much, Gillian. Sorry, Gillian. I always mispronounce.
Don't even mention it.
Yeah, so next I would like to introduce our other panelists for tonight, Ms. Jess Portaloff. Jess studied industrial and systems engineering at Georgia Tech. She's a program manager at Six River Systems and currently leads a team deploying robotic systems driven by their cloud-based software. Hi, Jess. Thank you for joining us tonight. Ms. Giara Bell. She joined Six River Systems as a reliability support engineer in 2020 after graduating with a degree in computer science from University of Rochester. She works with both the hardware and software reliability teams with a focus on customer support. Hi, Giara. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Katie Borea graduated with a degree in management information systems after spending the last 20 years as a system software QA engineer in the enterprise storage business. She decided to take on the challenge of robotics and warehousing as a senior software engineer in test. Hi, Katie. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Katie Powers joined Six River Systems in 2017 as a software engineer specializing in robotic navigation after working at several other robotics companies in the Boston area. She has recently begun leading the localization and mapping team as a software engineering manager. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us, Katie. Ms. Savini Prematileke graduated from Duke University with a degree in mechanical engineering. She joined Six River Systems in 2019 and is currently working as a software engineer. Hi, Savini. Thank you for joining us as well. And last but not the least, Ms. Talisa Sanchez. She joined the company in the summer of 2019 as a mechanical engineer, engineering co-op after graduating from Northeastern University. She has since transitioned to full-time and is currently a mechanical engineer on the hardware team, primarily focusing on accessories. Hi, Talisa. Thank you for joining us. And thank you so much, everyone. We're really excited about this. And just a quick note to the audience, please type in your questions and in the Q&A section of Zoom and upvote any question that you would like our panelists to answer, and we'll address the top voted questions in the end. If everybody is with me, we'll get started with our main discussion. All right. So our main discussion is divided into two sections. Our first section is career pathways in engineering and the tech stack at Six River Systems. So the very first question is for everyone. And it is that, can you tell us more about your career path and to Six River Systems and your current role at the company? Anyone who wants to go first? Okay, I'll just take name. Gillian?
Oh, I'll be brief. I mean, my career is mainly in e-commerce or building e-commerce teams and e-commerce experiences in large companies. And I woke up too late to the excitement in supply chain that you guys can probably feel in the room, and robotics and the area of logistics. But I also woke up late to the excitement of small companies and startups. And there is so much room for impact when you work at a smaller company. But I started in a large company, I've come to a small company and started in e-commerce, and now I'm in fulfillment. So you can do anything.
Thank you, Gillian. Jess, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So similar to Gillian, I've also had two prior experiences before coming to Six River. Both of them were at large companies. So right after college, I spent years as a software consultant at Manhattan Associates, who's a warehouse management software provider. And then from there, went over to the Home Depot and spent 3 years primarily working on supply chain implementation. So very similar to the deployment role I have today. But not at all robotics focused. It was solely standing up warehouses, figuring out the operations, and implementing software. So coming to Six River was my first robotics experience.
Thank you, Jess. Tiara?
Hi, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, sure. So before I came to 6RS, I had no formal experience in robotics. So I studied computer science, and with a degree like that, you can pretty much do anything. You can concentrate on anything. So before that, I actually worked at a robotics summer camp for kids at the YMCA, and it was pretty fun. So the robots that they have are like little Lego robots, but I've always been like attracted to sequential thinking and problem solving, and that's something that's really prevalent in robotics, especially robotics engineering. So when I graduated, I was looking at different robotics companies, and then I ended up finding 6RS, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So my current role, I currently work as a reliability support engineer. So I work with both the hardware reliability teams and the software reliability teams to make sure that our product is working how it should, and that our product is stable and that our services are stable. So yeah, it's a pretty fast-paced job, and I like it that way.
Chaotic job. Thank you, Diara. Katie Boria, do you want to go next?
So, hi, I've been a QA engineer for pretty much as long as I can remember. I started about right out of college. It just kind of ended into this. And I have been in storage, enterprise business storage for about 20 years. And I sort of lost that feeling that Jillian was talking about earlier about being challenged. And I felt that need that I needed to be challenged again. And recently, this past year, a friend contacted me and was, "Are you looking for a new job?" And I can't hurt, right? So I had no experience in robotics, but I needed something new. QA has always been my love. I love to find things that are broken. I love to prove developers are wrong. It's something I'm really good at. That's just sort of how I ended up here. And I love it. It has been an amazing experience. So I hope to stay here for a lot longer.
Great. Isn't QA about challenging the developers more than challenging yourself? Challenging the product. Great. All right. Katie Power, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Katie Powers. I studied mechanical engineering in undergrad, but one summer I needed a job and I didn't want to go home. So I found an internship at a robotics lab and I really loved it. And then right after undergrad, I went to grad school for robotics because I realized I wasn't qualified for anything other than, designing toilet paper packaging with an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. Making Savini laugh, but I'm a terrible mechanical engineer. So now I work in software. And I've worked at several robotics startups of varying sizes in Boston. And now I am managing the localization and mapping team.
Perfect. I think Sanjuksha would be able to relate.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same. I also come from a mechanical engineering background, but now I'm a software engineer. So I totally get it.
All right. Savini, your turn.
Yeah, so kind of similar to Katie also, I got my degree in mechanical engineering, and after a couple internships in college in like a mechanical engineering position, kind of realized that wasn't for me. And so that's how I ended up in tech ops at 6RS. And then earlier this year, I switched into a software engineering position.
Perfect. Talisa.
Yeah, hi, I'm Talisa Sanchez. I guess I'm one of the few people that stuck with the mechanical engineering degree. So yeah, I currently work as a mechanical engineer on the hardware team. This was my first job out of college. I'd done some co-ops through Northeastern. They were all engineering related, manufacturing, design, prototyping, a lot of different areas of mechanical engineering. And that's where I learned that I like the R&D, design and prototyping part of mechanical engineering, very hands-on. So that's a lot of what I'm doing now. So yeah, it's super great to, be able to go into the office and still work with robots and stuff.
I envy you.
Yeah, that's the advantage for the mechanical engineers, I'm guessing. Software like don't have to go in, so we are like forced by COVID to stay home.
All right, that was a good warm up for everyone. Moving on to the next question. So this is more on the engineering side. What skills are most important in your role and the roles on your team? Like software, hardware, reliability. I guess Sabini, if you want to go first.
Yeah. I think a big one for me is communication. Even though it's engineering, because we're remote, on our squad, we call it being noisy, but just being like loud about what you're working on. So that if you run into like roadblocks, someone can help you, or just so people know where you're at. And especially as like a new engineer on the squad and just like new to software engineering in general, yeah, I feel like it's way easier to get stuff done when you're loud about what you're doing and people can help you.
I couldn't agree more with this. Like when you tell someone what the problem is, it's a very different approach that you're thinking. So I think that's a really good thing. Thank you.
Thanks. Talisa, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think with mechanical engineering and the hardware team, the like pretty obvious ones would be like SolidWorks or some sort of CAD experience. But I think the most important for our team is being creative and innovative and like thinking outside the box. Because a lot of times there are multiple solutions to a problem, and it's just a matter of, you know, working with each other and figuring out what the best solution is.
So to add to that, I think as a new engineer in the field, I think, and this may answer the question that's in the chat for undergrad students and even just new employees, to sort of remember that no question ever is a stupid question. I know I get this every day from new employees, and I've only been here for 7 months, but we're hiring new employees and hiring a new employees. And they're like, can I ask you a stupid question? Can I ask you a stupid question? You sort of just always need to remember that in engineering, there are no stupid questions. It's always learning and sharing knowledge. And I always recommend that sharing knowledge amongst each other every day is the most important thing that you can do. To help each other, that every single day you will always be learning. No matter how smart you are, no matter what degree you will always be learning. So just always remember, ask questions every single day. It's really, really, really important.
Encouraging thing to say. I mean, like everyone has this thing that I can ask you a stupid question, but yeah, you're totally right about this. I really love this.
That possibly make a note and stick it to your wall.
I think we should ban the word stupid question. I mean, it's like a thing that we all say to be like, I have a question that I should probably know the answer to, and no one should know the answer to anything. We shouldn't assume that, right? So I'm half kidding, but half not.
I also think it's a very an innate reaction that females tend to have, or women tend to have, to say, oh, I have a stupid question, as a self-defense, whereas I've never come across a male coworker who has paraphrased or has, you know, prefaced a question with that. So I couldn't agree more, Gillian, that just ask the question. You don't have to give an excuse for yourself.
Well, yeah, coming back to the question, Diara, what do you have to say about the skills? How do you manage your chaotic job?
Sure. So I would say for that, my specific role, one big skill that you'll want to have is quick thinking, or let me rephrase that, making the most of what you have with the limited resources that you have, making the most of that. So one very limited resource that everyone can relate to is time, especially if you're working with a customer and this is, you know, an emergency situation, they're not going to be able to get their orders out. Time is a very limited resource for everybody, right? We don't have time to do everything that we want to do in a day. So it's making the most of what you can, learning how to prioritize what needs to come first, what needs to come second, what needs to come third, learning how to prioritize your responsibilities, learning how to prioritize the customer's needs versus our own team's needs. I definitely think that learning how to manage resources is one of the biggest skills that is necessary for my specific role.
I love that. I think that goes a long way. If once you learn how to manage your time, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
I add one more. So I don't know if you're going to go around the room or not. But I think we women have an innate advantage in many ways, is that we actually like to listen to other people, right? And we're curious about what other people have to say, and we want other people to be heard. And so I think very, very specifically, being a good listener, right? And being, as a good listener, the whole active listening thing of asking questions is a very, very important skill. You learn a lot and you get better. And you make the other people around you feel really good, which collectively makes everyone better, right?
I hope the audience heard you and we get more questions from them now.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that's a good start. Moving on to the next question. How can someone best represent their skills when looking for a new position in robotics? And this goes to Katie Powers.
Sure, I'll take a stab at that. I mean, one thing that I think it's important to note is that when you say robotics and when we have this whole panel, robotics is an entire industry now. And so if you're looking for a position at a company that does robotics, you need to pick whatever's right for your background and skill set. If you're looking for a robotics engineering position, where you're doing like navigation or localization, you're gonna want to highlight that you have some experience, you've taken some classes in these things. But that overall, at every robotics company I've ever worked at, there's more jobs doing the part that you may not think of as robotics than there are jobs doing the parts that everyone thinks of when they think of robotics. There's probably as many front-end engineers at every company as there are, people doing the navigation algorithms. And so if you're interested in the industry, you can think more widely about what kind of roles you want.
That's a good insight. Does it affect, like, if somebody doesn't have, say, much experience with computer vision and they want to get into those kind of roles? So how would that person showcase their experience to, if they want to try out a new position?
That's a good question. To be honest, the best way that's going to work out the best for you over the course of your career is to go get a master's degree in a specialization, if that's what you really want. You can get at it other ways if you have a lot of software experience. A lot of the people on the navigation and perception teams, even on those teams, there's a lot of software to be written that isn't highly specialized algorithms. But when we are hiring for positions that we expect to work on these, we do look for higher education in them. And well, it's possible to get into it just by learning on the job, but it's going to be much more effective if you have some graduate experience.
That makes sense. Yeah. Jess, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I can provide some insight, particularly around the deployment team, because my team in particular is hiring for either new grads or graduates who, have or folks who have graduated in the last couple of years. So unlike some of the teams maybe that Katie's referring to, this opportunity would be more of, you're fresh out of school and maybe you don't know what you want to do, but you're passionate about robotics and you haven't yet had that internship in a specific robotics field, but you just want to get your toes wet and kind of understand what's out there. So there are definitely opportunities at robotics companies that don't require it. What I would say to showcase your skills and kind of what you have to offer, I would say, like, what passions do you have and how do you spend your free time, or what projects have you done in school, or maybe even what projects are you working on after work or after school? So some of the best interviews that I've had have been talking to candidates about their passion projects. So maybe they're building a robot at home to just tinker around with a Raspberry Pi, or, you know, different things like that. So just showing that you're interested in the industry and that you've maybe even played around with some of it can go a long way.
So just a small follow-up on that. So you work in a deployment essentially. So how is it is different to filter out skills if somebody is looking for a normal robotic software engineer and versus in QA or in deployment? Is there any difference that you look for, or it's just a normal robotics engineer with a master's can do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It kind of ranges, to be honest, depending on the candidate and what they're interested in. But I'd say, you know, for the most part, you get to touch a little bit of everything in this kind of a team and in this role. So if you're interested in hardware and software and even customer engagement, maybe even a little bit in sales, in a deployment type role, you get to really get your hands dirty in all of those different areas.
Thank you so much. Moving on, this is a question that a lot of us have in this recent situation. So there goes. What are the effects of the recent pandemic on the robotics industry, and should we be expecting more jobs in robotics now or in the near future? I guess Dylan would be a good person for that.
Sure, I'd love to talk about it. So as I mentioned earlier, yes, seismic change, right, in for all of our lives, it meant a seismic change for kind of our professional lives in Six River and in fulfillment in general, right? So a couple of, you know, really key trends that were already happening: growth of e-commerce, growth of kind of different channels that customers wanted to buy stuff in, social, physical retail, online retail. All of those trends got accelerated by the pandemic, right? And hopefully this pandemic is in the rearview mirror, but I think what it really means for the industry is that we need to help customers be resilient for whatever is coming next. And God help us, it's not another pandemic, but it just is change, right? And hopefully change for the good. You know, customers, I mean, our customers actually benefited from the pandemic. So there was a silver lining to what has been a really, really hard year, we know. But the silver lining, I guess, is that, you know, e-commerce grew, accelerated. Our customers' businesses grew, our challenges grew, our ability to help our customers grew and changed. And just one example of that would be, you know, we helped customers immediately make their associates more safe in the warehouse by creating a more socially distanced picking path for trucks. We gave them cleaning materials to clean the trucks down between shifts and things like that. So, you know, just tactically, we made a lot, you know, it changed a lot of how we executed in the warehouse. But I think what it really, you know, hammered home was the ability to be able to be flexible and responsive. And robots in general are a great way for customers to be flexible and responsive for whatever kind of changes are thrown their way. And that's going to continue to happen.
That's good to hear. All right. Moving on. So this one is again focused on deployment and reliability. So what is the most difficult part of deploying robots and supporting current customers? Jess?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take a stab at the pre-go live phase of deploying robots, and then Diara is focused on once we've already deployed the robots, what happens next. So just looking at how we get our robots to the site, I think the most difficult part of deployment is really just the fact that we're deploying a physical thing to a customer warehouse. So unlike a system or a software implementation that's, you know, there's no physical component to it, we have to coordinate all the way up to our manufacturer to ensure that we have the right number of robots at the right place at the right time before we can even begin most of our deployment tasks. So that level of coordination makes it quite complex. And then once those robots do arrive on site, We have a whole bunch of hardware tests we have to run, map the facility. So it's really just coordinating both internally and externally with the customer that can make it difficult, but an exciting challenge that we're all really engaged in every day. And I think the other piece of that too is we have to coordinate with the customer. Like, you know, we're sending these robots on site. Where are they going to be stored? Where are they going to charge them? Where are they going to travel through the facility? How do we ensure that they're not going to run into other equipment in the facility, like a forklift? So lots of coordination, but an exciting challenge.
Yeah, that's definitely a high stress job. Tiara, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So definitely after deployment, the hardest thing is keeping our various systems stable, which is the point of reliability, is making sure that all of the systems that we have in place, you know, it's not even just Chuck, the physical Chuck itself, it's also our fulfillment services, the software that we use, making sure that we're in touch with the customer and that we're meeting their needs, because the customer's needs change, obviously, as time progresses. You know, making sure that we're able to keep ourselves in a stable position throughout, right? So, you know, Chucks are, I know our engineering team does their best to make Chuck as wonderful as possible. But sadly, Chuck is a machine and sometimes it breaks down. So then we kind of step in to, you know, try to get that resolved for them as quickly as possible, trying to make sure that we, you know, are passing those, you know, if like we're seeing like multiple, you know, errors, that it's like a recurring problem, then we'll pass it on to the direct team, like the team that works on it. So for example, like if I'm noticing that Chuck at one site is having like a ton of localization issues, I'll be like, hey, Katie or Katie Powers, hey, you need to help us with this because we're, you know, we're noticing a bunch of things. And then Katie and her team are going to like look into that issue further, right? So we're kind of the front line of defense of making sure that, you know, our system is stable and that we catch anything before it gets to the point where it's going to, you know, destroy the entire system, and that we prevent those issues from occurring in the first place. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. Stability is essential. I'm curious though. Have any of you, or have you got like a call in the midnight from a customer like, okay, this is not working. Can you please help us out? Or have you bugged anybody else on the team? You know, fix this. It's not, the robot cannot see, and whatever the issue is.
So how it works is we have an on-call schedule. So we always have someone at all times who is available. So for midnight calls, we utilize our friends who live in the UK, who are able to take those calls for us, like if we have something like in the middle of the night, right? Because we have a global, you know, network. We have sites in Europe, we have sites in North America. So, you know, we're able to keep that 24/7 coverage by utilizing people in different areas of the world.
Great. Thank you so much. And well, this was our first section. From our second section, Sanjiksha would take over as moderator. So over to you.
Thank you, Dharini. So our next section is about a day in all of your lives. So we are very excited to know what you do every day. So the first question is, what technologies do you use on a daily basis? Anyone want to go first? Okay, Katie Moria. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So we basically use a lot of different things actually. So for QA engineering, we use certain tools such as Git Hub, which is very popular across the board for testing and repositories. We could use for our communications of logging issues and tracking program management stories. We use Jira, which is a resource management tool, which is widely used across all of the company. So that's a very important tool to understand. Another tool that, or I guess something that you should, as an engineer, become familiar with is Kubernetes and Docker, things like that are very important to understand as an engineer. Because I'm not on the robotic side, it's more on the software side, or the cloud side, I should say. I use more of the softwares, but I'm not so much specific with the robotic hardware testing as I am with the software testing. So we use more tools and automation. So there are other tools that we could use, but I do more manual testing, I guess, I should say. So maybe some of the other engineers may have some other tools that they could mention.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. I think Diara wanted to speak next.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much, Katie. So Katie mentioned a few of the tools that I use as well, such as Docker and Jira for handling customer issues. So I know this is a big one. We also use ROS, which, if you're not familiar with it, stands for Robot Operating System, quite literally. Pretty cool. So we use ROS a lot just for getting data about the robots at a specific date and time, and being able to visualize like what data or alerts that we get from the robots at a specific date and time. So for example, if the customer is telling us, hey, the robot had an alert, or it showed us an alert at this specific date and time, we can use the ROS software to figure out what time and date, or whether or not that error was actually triggered. And another software that we use, or another technology that we use is SQL and databases. Databases are a pretty big part of our job, just because we have so much information that we get from the customers about like what orders they need to be sent out with Chuck, which Chucks they use at a certain time. So we use a lot of databases, and SQL is really helpful with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else from engineering would like to add? Yeah, go ahead,
I'll
Talisa.
quickly add from the like mechanical and hardware side. Mechanical engineering, we use SolidWorks primarily. That's like the CAD program, so that's for designing and everything. And we can still go into the office occasionally. So there we have a little machine shop that we have, so we can make parts if we need to. So it's all pretty hands-on, and yeah, a lot of different technologies that we have.
That sounds really fun to have a machine shop. Like it's like on-demand parts you can make.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to learn. I learned how to use everything like while I was a co-op. So
you have like lathe machines.
But yeah, we have lathes and mills, some saws, just the basics. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. Anyone else? Or anything else from Gillen? Do you want to add some skills that or technologies that you use?
I mean, I would leave it to the engineers from a technology perspective. I mean, from a product perspective, we use a lot of tools and kind of, tools to make us efficiency through the kind of prioritization and road mapping process. But I think we've covered the really interesting ones here. So, I think that was the most important part.
Okay. Then moving on to the next question. So how do you keep up to date with these technologies? Like what resources did you find the most helpful in your career path? Jess, would you like to start?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that one. I guess I'll touch on the resources that I find helpful. Honestly, I think following companies on LinkedIn has been really powerful in my career and my development, because what it allows for is you can choose the companies that you follow on LinkedIn, and they'll typically post either about things that they're working on or relevant articles to what's important to that company. So really you can go down some awesome rabbit holes just clicking on articles and finding ones that are related. So for me, like my LinkedIn is full of other supply chain companies. That's honestly how I found Six River, was through following both Six River and Shopify. So just browsing LinkedIn, like, you know, in the evening before going to bed, I typically find some really great articles.
Yeah, it's definitely better than browsing Instagram, isn't it?
It's a little bit more educational.
Yeah.
Maybe less fun.
So, yeah, Tiara, go ahead.
So here are some technical resources that I found helpful when I was first starting here. So when I first came here, I had absolutely no experience with ROS whatsoever. I had never used it in school. So I definitely wanted to get up to speed on that, you know, and go above and beyond with that. If you look up the construct, it's literally just the construct. They have free ROS courses that you can take online. And it kind of just helps you like with the robot development process if you're interested in that. And then also for coding, if you're interested in programming and coding and things like that, or for example, you need to brush up on a specific coding language like SQL, Python, etc. I would highly recommend Code Academy. They have pretty much got you covered on most of the basic languages that people will use. And it's just very like basic things, like just very like basic hello world sort of things. But for example, if like you haven't used a specific language in a while, that can really be helpful to like refresh your memory and just remember the syntax and everything like that. So I highly recommend those two resources if you're looking to brush out on specific technical skills.
I definitely love the construct. I have seen, they even have podcasts these days, I've heard. Like, I've not seen any much, but it's a great platform.
Yeah, they also have, I've actually never been to the live classes, but they do have like live classes too, with a live instructor. So you can go through like, there was one that I saw where they're like building a robotic arm. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's really nice. Savini, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think that even within the company, there's like a lot of ways to stay up to date. I like to like lean on my coworkers, for example. Like there's people with like way more years of experience than me, so yeah. There's always like different tips and tricks that people can help you with. And also in Slack, we have Slack channels, like we have a hacker chat Slack channel where people post different things that they've learned about. And that's a different way to keep up to date with stuff.
I mean, what would be a better resource than having to learn from someone's experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Anyone else? Katie Powers?
Yeah, first of all, I just had to Google the construct and it looks amazing. And I'm ashamed I hadn't heard of it before. Specifically for robotics, if there's anyone like studying robotics, I like to look at what's coming out of ROSCON and IROS every year and just sort of browse them. And ROSCON is this conference for ROS developers that happens before IROS, which is an international robotics academic conference. So the papers coming out of there are pretty, they're very academically focused and tough to read, but it's great to at least look through them and see what's coming down the pipeline from academia to industry.
That's nice. I don't follow the conferences a lot. I think Dharini has more knowledge on those. She's been to a couple of them as well, right?
Oh, I just been to one.
Yeah, so it's a great resource, I guess.
I guess last year a lot of conferences were free, but yeah, I was following them. Yeah.
Since they made everything online, I think you can like go in like online and it's free, so it's nice.
A quick question, Diara, can you send the link to the ROS course that you were talking about so that our
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely send the link in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. I think you have to make an account, but it's free. They do have like paid courses, but you don't have to take those. Yeah, but I can try to find a link to, hold on. I got one for you. Okay. But yeah, I highly recommend this website. Just if you're like just getting into ROS, like I was not familiar with it at all, and this really helped me. So.
So our next question is more of like a product-based question. So the capabilities of robotic systems are largely misinterpreted. So how do you manage the client's expectations and streamline the development process to prevent teams from getting derailed or by like meaningful features? Would you like to share with some real life examples?
I'll kick it. It sounds like a product question, so maybe I'll kick it off, but I definitely want to open it out to everyone else in the panel. I mean, I think where we, when you make the best product is when you really are listening to your customers, right? And when you are making sure that you are understanding their pain points. So, and so we have, so many smart people and so many experienced people who in the industry who guide what we internally want to do and what we are making strategic investments in doing. But the continuous feedback from customers as to whether that's the right thing to do, and meeting with customers, talking with customers, meeting with, Jess and the team come with a lot of great ideas because they're on the ground at sites, right? And can see some of the pain points. And it's just been such a thorn in all of our sides this year that we haven't been able to get out to see and interact with and see our products being used in the market, that we can't wait to get back out to sites. But I think listening to customers, number one, two, always using data to help understand what the impact of doing that, making that investment is, because there's always more demand than there is capacity, right? And so one of the hardest and the best part of my jobs is helping the teams make sure that we are making the right investments to improve the customer's experience and getting the most out of our systems. And we've gotten it wrong a couple of times, right? We didn't, one of the products we invested in the market, and we designed it for one customer really, and it didn't really meet the mark for other customers. And now we're having to go back and enhance that product. So it was just a learning and reinforcing. Once again, you've got to talk to a lot of customers to make sure you're building a product that meets the needs of a lot of customers, and using data to make sure that it's actually, that it's true, that it's qualitatively backed, not just quantitatively.
Yeah, that's really great insight, actually. Thank you. Anyone else would like to go ahead?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Share. Yeah, I mean, Gillen's point about using data, I think is really important, and especially with robots, there's always a line between, or you need to be very careful about educating the customer about what the robot can do and not getting too technical, because people will hear a technical term and they'll run with it. They'll come back to you with it 2 months later and it's meaning something completely different. And people love to give personalities to the robots. So I've had a night shift manager once told me that they drove slower at the end of the night because they were tired and they needed to go charge their batteries, which was so cute, but not true. So you have to kind of filter the things that people tell you, or they'll think certain robots are like worse than others, or they'll be afraid of a certain one, not want to work with it. They don't like its personality, which frequently isn't borne out in the data, but you have to work with people on that. And that's one of the things I like the best about working at a company that makes products and sells them to people, and not in like the academic space, is that you get to handle that.
I really loved your examples.
Yeah.
It's really nice. So thank you so much, Katie. Moving on to the next question. What have you learned since you joined Six River Systems? So, Savini.
Literally so much. I would say like the big like categories are like the first thing I learned was about the e-commerce and logistics industry in general. The internships and stuff I worked on in college was completely unrelated to this industry. So you get so much context about that and specifically how 6RS fits into that. And then like in a software engineering position, there's so much to learn about just like developing and releasing software, like stuff like our release cycle. I've never like interacted with such a large code base before, so there's so much to learn there. Yeah, and also like I mentioned before, like I started in tech ops and then switched into software engineering. So I'm new to developing also in TypeScript, so I've learned about that. But yeah, just literally so much in the past 2 years.
That's really nice. Talisa, would you like to give us a little hardware perspective on this?
Yeah. So similar to Savini, I think we started around the same time. It's been about 2 years, and I've also learned like so much that I can't even say. A lot in like SolidWorks and CAD programs. That's kind of mostly what I do. So a lot of people I work with have been, doing engineering their whole lives. So they're like a wealth of knowledge and know so much. So that's been great. But one of the like main things that I've learned is designing for customer facing parts. That's not something that I'd done before in my co-ops. They'd usually been like one of the co-ops that I had was aerospace manufacturing. So those are parts that customers aren't going to see. They go in jet engines, so they're pretty hidden. But designing for customers is very different because not only does it have to work, but it has to look pretty too. So that's been like a really big learning curve for me and learning everything that I can from my coworkers.
That's really nice. So thank you. And let's move on to the next questions. So this goes into the personal part of the section of the event. So how do you overcome moments of self-doubt? I think, and this is a really important question, I guess, especially when working in a male-dominated industry.
Maybe I'll start it off. I actually I am part of our leadership team, and I'm one of 2 women on our leadership team. And I don't even notice it sometimes, but that's our culture, right? But I'm also very proud to be there and to be representing kind of us there. But what I would also say is that 2 things. One is you just have to go. You got to pick your company really carefully, right? And let's be honest, sometimes supply chain and logistics and robotics is pretty damn male oriented. Now, the advantage would be that it's they're none of these companies are old enough to have kind of dinosaur views of the world. They're usually generally forward thinking technology people who are running and in these companies. So, that's a big advantage for not having a kind of old school misogynistic view of women in this workplace. But so the second thing I would say is so important that we are there for each other and we help each other get into companies, because we are we create the pathways, right, for everyone who looks and sounds like us or who doesn't look and sound like us. And we've got to be very, very focused on making sure that we are helping each other out. And I know that sounds cliche, but really there is only every company will continue to recruit from its network. Just that's what naturally happens. And if your network in a company only looks like you, we're not going to make enough headway fast enough. So I would say we've got to, to use the phrase, lean in, but also just do it in a way that is your own way, right? You've got to know that you're a strong, amazing, smart person, first of all, and what gender you are, or makes no difference, and have that firmly in your mind as you are engaging in any meeting and engaging with any audience. I know that everyone on this call feels that way. I just wanted to make sure everyone heard it and can really believe it.
Thank you. That is really nice to know. I mean, having that kind of confidence in your environment and to thrive in such, it's better if you are in such environments, you really thrive and don't struggle with self-doubts and everything. So it's really glad that you explained this to us. Thank you.
I think like it's just a really important question because a lot of us face like imposter syndrome, and it's more common in women. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm glad that your company has like a lot of women leaders as well. That's somewhat rare, and it's not just about hiring women. It's about like making a good environment for them to thrive in. So I'm glad to have like talked to you all and about your experiences.
Yeah, and sessions like that, sessions like this are wonderful for making connections and just learning from each other.
I also have something that I want to add. So this is not like a specific piece of advice, but this is more just like how you can change the mindset that you think about things, right? A lot of times, like you don't see this as much anymore, but definitely like when I was growing up and when I was going to school, there was this attitude of like women can do it just as well as a man, or women can be just like a man, or you can be just like whatever the standard was. And I learned over time that when you do that, when you put someone else on a pedestal because they are in a higher position of privilege from you. For example, I'm a woman of color. So for me, if I'm putting a white man on a pedestal and saying, oh, I'm going to be just as good as a white man, I'm going to do all of these things that white men can do in society, right? What I really want to say is, I am able to do those things, and I am able to recognize my intelligence, my self-worth without comparing it to somebody else. I am able to recognize that I am not as good as a man, but that I am good in my own inherent worth, right? Without recognizing that I have to be compared to somebody. That has been helpful for me, is especially recognizing that, it's not, although people will try to treat it like a competition, it does not have to be, you don't have to be as good as somebody else. You can just be you.
True that. And I think I'm actually really glad that we can have this kind of conversation, and Women in Robotics is providing this platform, and like we could completely support you in whatever you do.
And about comparison, I think you should always compare yourself to the past you than comparing yourself with someone else. So you just look how far you have come, and that is the best way to like move on and become more than you are, than to compare yourself with someone else. So thank you, Diara. That's really great advice.
So I'd like to add to one of the questions in the Q&A about how do you gain respect from your peers. So I don't think it's so much that you should have to gain respect from your male peers any differently than you should have to gain respect from your women peers. I think that when you have a position at work, your job is your job, and that the way that you should gain respect is based on how you present yourself and how you perform in your job. And that no matter whether you are working for a woman or whether you're working for a man, you shouldn't work any less harder. You should always do the best of your work for no matter who you are working for or who you are working with. You should always strive to do your best. And yes, of course, some days you're going to have bad days and you're not going to want to or not going to be able to. We all have bad days. Women and men have bad days. We all have bad days. But the point is, gaining respect is something that just comes. If you try your best, you will get the respect that you deserve. As long as you put yourself out there, there shouldn't be anything different from a man versus a woman. I've been in this field for over 20 something years now. I have always been with men, always. My last company, there were 3 women out of 73, and it was amazing. I could not have asked for a more supportive group of men to work with. I didn't have to try any harder or any less than what I would have if I worked for women. You just need to put yourself and put everything you have into it. If you love your job, if you love what you do, you will get that respect you deserve.
That's really great advice. Thank you. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I've seen some questions in the chat focusing on undergrads, and this question also makes me think it comes from a younger person. And for me, my experience was that I faced so much more disrespect and harassment in my education than I have in the working world. And so if you're still getting your education, like, it gets better. People in undergrad, they're supposedly adults, but they got away with so much stuff that would frankly get you fired from an actual job. And just attitudes that over time would get you fired. So, if you stick with it, it mostly gets better.
I guess
I think
environment helps, right?
I think I'll add to that we all have like those defining moments that maybe are related to being like a woman in a male dominated industry. But I think the one for me that like really stands out was freshman year of undergrad in chem lab. I was in a group of all male peers, and they did not listen to me at all. So it kind of got to the point where it was demoralizing and very discouraging, especially freshman year of college. And I think for me, instead of taking that as a moment of, wow, what am I doing in an engineer field? And, I can't do this. Instead, it was like, well, how do I gain their respect, and how do I change their perspective of me and make myself more powerful moving forward? And so I think thinking back to that moment, it's hard to speak up and stand up for yourself. But it's a skill that comes with time and comes with the confidence, and even just like knowing what your strengths are and working towards them is really going to help you gain the respect of your peers, and maybe you're still in school or even in the workforce. To Katie's point, it definitely gets easier once you're in a company, especially a company like Six River, where the culture is incredibly encouraging. And the other thing I want to add too is celebrate the small wins. So for women in particular, I think we set very ambitious goals for ourselves, and it's important to slow down and look at where you've come or where you've come from and where you're going, and make sure you recognize kind of the small things that have gotten you there. So one thing I really love to do is I save messages from peers or even emails from customers. And on days like Katie mentioned, if you're really just not down on yourself or just not feeling like you can give 100%, pull those emails up again and remind yourself that you've done really great things and you can keep going.
Thank you so much, Jess. I mean, and everyone, actually, you guys shared so much, and I really appreciate you for doing this. Like, this is a platform where we should be comfortable talking about these things, and I'm really glad that you guys shared so much. And I'm like 100% sure like you really helped someone today in this call. And I hope if anyone of like the undergrads are hearing, and like Katie said, it gets better. If you're still in that particular point of your life where you think, this is not working out, just hold on, and someday you can be on the call with us like everyone else here. So thank you. So moving on to our next question. Tell us how you collaborate while working remotely. Katie?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, so I started here about 7 months ago, and this was in the middle of the pandemic. So I have never actually worked one time. When I started, everything was remote. My interview was remote, my hiring process was remote, onboarding was remote. I have never met my boss physically, never met anyone physically. I've only been into our lab one time to do testing. So my entire job has been remote. This is coming from a situation where my previous job, I actually worked in the lab every day, and this was hard. It was hard. It was a hard transition. However, the culture here at Six River is so supportive. And so the teams and the people and everyone here, not just the team I work with, but all of the women here are very supportive, that it makes it easy to be able to come in, and we have sessions that are just, we have a Slack channel that is just online 24 hours a day that anyone can just go to, and some people are on and just pop in and say hi. We have so many resources available that it just makes it okay to do FaceTimes and video calls, and the flexibility to be able to say, I need to take a break and go for a walk. It's okay. One thing about working remotely is being able to find your work-life balance, which I think is important for everyone. And that was the biggest struggle, I believe, at the beginning, was you're working at home now and you don't have that ability to walk away because it's always in front of you. So you need to find that process of, oh, my kids are home, oh, my husband's home, I need to take the dog for a walk. You need to be able to find some way and a process and a calendar and a timer and everything. You forget to get up and get a glass of water. You forget to get up and eat. You forget to do all of this stuff. I mean, so sometimes I need to even tell myself, oh my God, I left my kids at the bar, so I forgot to pick them up from school so many times. But these are all things that come with remote working. And it's a fun process to actually get adjusted to. I do miss going into the lab, but I feel that this remote experience has changed the way I work and changed the way I interact with people. It's made me smarter because it makes me think about what I have to do, and before just a little bit differently, makes you think differently. So it gets easier. Again, it was hard at first. It will be hard at first, but it will definitely get easier.
That's really inspiring.
I'm sure a lot of people here relate to that. I mean, work from home has not been really nice to everyone. It has its pros and cons, right? Thank you, Katie. The next question is for Katie Powers, actually. So since you were promoted within 6RS, tell us about your career path and how did you decide to pursue the path of to team leadership?
Sure. So, I mean, every engineer, and this is pretty common across different companies, we have tracks for becoming a senior individual contributor, and then a different track for people who are interested in management. And we emphasize different skills in those tracks, although there's obviously a lot of overlap. And for me, I was interested in helping mentor people, but also in just having a bigger impact on the technical decisions. And as my advice for anyone interested in that is that, you know, I had to start making decisions based on that years ago. I actually left a different company because it became clear to me that that company wasn't growing. And if the company's not growing, you are not getting a promotion. If they're not hiring people actively and rapidly, it is going to be a long time before anyone gets a promotion. And so at one place, I actually really liked that company, but it was clear to me that there was other people who were more in line, and my career wasn't going to grow there. And so I came to Six River partially because I really liked the people I knew who work here, but also because it was my chance to start somewhere small and be at a rapidly growing company that would support my career growth. And yeah.
Thank you. So the next question is for everyone. So what is the one piece of advice that you would always turn to in difficult times?
So I believe this is one thing, probably very common advice I could give is never give up. Just honestly, stay strong no matter what happens. If you have your heart set on something, if someone puts you down, even if it's a male in your field that puts you down, keep your head up, hold your head high. There are going to be bad days. It happened. In this field, in any field, robotics, engineering, even outside of this field, as a woman, we're known to be the one to take care of everyone. So in being in this field, I have always considered the guys as my guys. And every group I've been in, I've been the one to take care of my guys. And, it's been great. And I love being with them. But, there are days where I need them to take care of me. And there are days where I need them. And they've been very supportive. And, but there are going to be times where you're going to have to, as Diara said, it's chaotic. Engineering is chaotic. There's no other word for it other than chaotic. And you're going to have panic attacks. And you're going to have, it's just part of life, but you've got to stay strong. Take your deep breaths. Everything's going to be okay. Hold your head up high, believe in yourself, get your confidence, and it's going to be okay. Tomorrow is a new day, and you'll make it through. They're really, really, you've got to find that confidence in you, and you will be okay. We are all okay. We all made it this far, and we are all going to make it farther, and we are going to see Six River keep going, and you will be just as well with whatever you guys choose to do.
That is really great piece of advice. I mean, I really, really, really thank you for that. I think a lot of us really needed to hear that. So thank you, Katie.
I would also add that if you honestly, I would challenge all of us to think, and I know in the moment, in those difficult days and whatever, that it really stinks. But I would wager that most people here would say that that was a defining moment for them, right? And that was a moment that I found a deeper level of something, grit, determination, strength that I didn't even know I had. And you keep building that in that inner core of confidence. And so it's those hard moments that define us and make the next moment not as hard.
I'd also add that it's really important, sorry, Talisa, really important to learn how to be flexible. I think as engineers, it's like ingrained in us to build a plan, follow the plan, and don't deviate from the plan, which on paper sounds great, but in reality, you just really need to be okay with the unknown. And if things don't go to plan, that's okay. You just need to find a different way.
I was just going to add that for me personally, something that's been like super helpful is, it's okay to ask for help. I spent a lot of time like thinking that if I had something assigned to me, that means that I have to do it on my own, figure it out on my own. But that's not always like the best way to go about things. Other people have different skills and they can help out in different ways. So if I'm stuck on something, instead of spending like hours Googling how to do something, like it's okay to ask somebody and they might know how to do it or might have a solution or like a way to find out how to do it. So that's been super helpful for me.
Great point.
I'm sure that it would be quicker than Google, right? Yeah, someone was saying. Out. Okay,
Oh.
great. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying it's a good point.
So thank you, everyone. This is like great. We have one question from the audience that we would like to ask here is what sort of female or male ratio is in the part of the company, and how large are teams or groups typically?
Maybe I'll maybe tackle total company 6RS, and then definitely other, Katie and Jess and others can speak for within engineering. I think we are at about 30% female within Six River as a whole. And as you'd imagine, that number fluctuates pretty heavily within the organization. Sales, obviously a very, traditionally male environment, is under that percentage, but product, for instance, is over that percentage. Talk about, just another, like we recruit people like ourselves. Like I've hired a lot of females into product, not deliberately. And that's kind of an unconscious bias that we all can actually benefit from in a strange way. But so there's a bit of I'll let Jess talk to, maybe within her area, and one of the engineering gals talk about engineering and QA. But overall, it's about 30% and growing.
Oh, that's really nice. I mean, 30% is a big number. I mean, I don't know if it seems big or not, but to have so many women at a company, like I've never seen so many women like in robotics in general. So thank you. And it's really sounds great that Six River Systems have this. So, and again, I love the culture you guys talked about. I mean, this is so much supportive. And I really encourage if someone is looking for new jobs, definitely apply to Six Rivers. They're hiring, I guess. So yes, and with this, we are coming to the end of our session. So thank you, everyone. Talisa, Katie, Laurie. Laurie, special thanks to you for organizing this event. We couldn't have done this without you. So really, really thank you. We loved this event. And again, everyone else, Katie, Diara, Gillian, Savini, and Jess, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really fun. And for everyone who, this is also thank you from all our members who attended this event tonight. It was really great conversation and learned really some practical things. Oh, I love the construct, by the way, Diara. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be using that. So thank you. And I hope you guys also enjoyed here being with us. So with that, I would like to say thank you and have a good night.
One more thing. Thank you. I'm sorry we are way ahead of our schedule, but thank you for staying and answering all our questions from the live audience as well. And we are hearing a lot of stuff in the chat, so please do take a look before you leave. Everybody really enjoyed, and it was really inspiring to some high school students and the women as well. So keep doing what you're doing. You all rock. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for organizing.
Thanks for having us.